Samantha, and welcome back to my channel. So, I started knitting about a year ago, and it has completely taken over my life in the best way. So today I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about my first year of knitting, essentially what I learned, what I love, and why I'm going to continue doing it. So this is my journey, how I started knitting. I wanted to learn how to knit a few years ago. I bought, some cheap needles from Michael's, some yarn. My thought was, okay, while I'm watching hockey or football with my fiance, I could be knitting instead of reading, because I was a big reader. I was reviewing on Instagram and all that stuff. But it's really hard to watch hockey and read at the same time. So I'd read during the intermissions, but what was I going to do with my hands during the actual game? So I bought some yarn, I bought some needles, and I started to teach myself how to knit. I will say that did not last, that did not stick for me at that time. It's probably about 4 years ago now, I would say. There was many reasons. I think I wasn't as committed to it. I was just kind of like trying, and I wasn't loving it. And at the time, it wasn't a hyperfixation for me. It was just something I decided to try to pick up to supplement other hyperfixations that I had at the time. What I wound up doing is I wound up going away, sitting in a drawer for obviously the next couple of years. I decided to pick it up again after watching Katie Snooks' videos. I've always loved Katie. She has been one of my favorite content creators out there. I started watching her in college and really connected with her because she was one of those people that openly talked about her hard journey with acne, what she's done to do it, and then going on Accutane. And that was something that I was really considering at the time because I had terrible cystic acne. It was horrible adult acne. I'd done everything. I'd taken all the medications. I'd used all the creams, everything, gone to a dermatologist multiple times. It just wasn't working for me. So I was considering Accutane, and her journey really helped me decide to do that. Kind of fell off the YouTube influencer train. I just stopped watching videos. I had other things that were going on in my life that I felt were use of my time versus watching YouTube videos, and I just kind of stopped. Well, I had a bug up my butt. I was like, I wonder what Katie's been up to lately. I went to her channel and she had been knitting, and I was like, you know what? It's time. It's time for me to pick up this hobby. I tried to start once again. So I did more research this time. I looked more into knitting. I didn't just go to the store and buy some needles and yarn and watch a couple of videos thinking I knew how to knit. I took the time to actually look into the best type of needles to start with, the best project to start with, those types of things. I really dove in more on this. I started with a scarf, and it really stuck with me the second time trying. It was definitely confusing. I didn't remember what I was doing from before, but once I started really doing it, and I read a bit about how to read your stitches, and I read a bit more about like the community, and I dove into Reddit, is when it really clicked. And what clicked for me too was the idea that if you can do a knit and a purl stitch, you can do anything in knitting. It's essentially two ways of making loops on a needle that all interconnect to create fabric. And once I realized that, it really opened up the world of possibilities of I can do anything. I can knit anything as long as I understand these concepts. So I think that was one of the things that also just really surprised me about the craft as well. It really is as simple as that. And as complicated as that. And there's so many times that people will see something I knit or be like, I can't believe you can do that. I wouldn't be able to. And I'm like, no, you can though. You just take the time to learn those two things and learn them right. And then everything else you're able to figure out. And that is, if I had to give one piece of advice to anyone who is new or thinking about knitting, that is what I will say. Figure out how to do a knit, how to do a purl, those two foundational aspects of knitting. And then just remember that if you can do those, you can do anything. And learn how to read your knitting. That really did help me a lot. When I learned how to read my knitting and I figured out what a twisted stitch was. Quick anecdote, I remember I was working on something and I was like, why do my stitches look so weird? Like, I was like, this one row just looks so weird. I was a little bit tipsy the night before when I was working on it. So I took a picture and I posted it on Reddit and I was like, what did I do? And everyone on Reddit was like, you twisted your stitches. And I was like, you're right. And so I learned how to identify a twisted stitch and I learned what a twisted stitch was, and it really did open everything for me, and it made it so much easier. So that's another piece of advice I would give, is learn what a twisted stitch is and how to prevent it and how to tell if your stitches are twisted, because that helps a lot as well. Now let's talk about some of the stuff that surprised me with knitting. I knew I would like it. I'm a big fan of like a slow craft. I've always loved fashion. Like, I've always been the type of person who really enjoyed clothes and shopping, and I liked the concept of making my own clothes. I just never learned how to do it. So I knew I would really enjoy it. What I did not expect and what really surprised me is how addicting knitting can be. How some projects you're just working on them and you're like, I can't wait to see what this is going to look like next. I can't wait to see what this next row is going to look like. It really like shocked me in a lot of ways, because I was like, wow, it's so easy to just spend hours knitting something. Teddy, what are you getting into? Sorry, my cat. This is Teddy. He is our newest child. He's about a year and a half probably now, but he's our baby. He joined our family probably 5-6 months ago now. Anyways, that was a fun little anecdote of Teddy time. I call him Little Monster. What was I saying? Okay, so things that surprised me. So it really is surprising to me how addictive knits can get and how quickly you can like fall into the trap of sitting there for hours straight knitting, like not even taking a break. I'm still not great at taking breaks. I've been forced to take a couple breaks recently. I think I've had like a nerve issue because I hurt my shoulder. I like strained my shoulder working out, and I think it's bleeding into my arm. So other things aside, but that was one thing that really surprised me. Another thing that surprised me is how technical knitting can be as well. So I'm not a math person. I've never been a math person. I've always been a self-proclaimed dumb girly when it came to math. Me and numbers do not get along. So that was something that was really surprising to me, that there's a lot of math involved. And another thing that really surprised me is how I'm able to actually do the math. I was shocked that when I like something, I will figure out how to make it work, even if it's not necessarily aligned with my personality in a lot of ways. Another thing that surprised me is how expensive yarn can be. So I definitely thought this was going to be one of those things where I'm like, oh my God, I'm making these great quality pieces and it can be so cheap. And it can be. Like, you can definitely make it economical of a hobby. Like, you can absolutely do this. You can ball on a budget with knitting. You really can. But you can also make it a very expensive hobby if you want to, with hand-dyed yarns and just like certain qualities of yarn. It's mostly hand-dyed that gets kind of caught up in this, and how quickly a stash can grow. That is something that shocked the heck out of me. I was like, oh, I will never be the type, like, I'm knitting a year. Like, there's no way I have that much yarn. Like, it can grow. And how much yarn you need for projects, that also really shocked me. Like, you think, oh, I can knit a sweater with a couple. No, like some sweaters, you need like 8, 9, 10 balls of yarn. So that was really shocking to me, I think. And in line with that, something that I thought was actually really cool was how customizable and personalizable you can do for your knits. I don't know if that's a word, but we're gonna go with it. So that was something that was really shocking to me. And it was also really cool. Like, I think that's what makes knitting like one of those really, really cool hobbies, is you can really do anything with it. Like, you can get a pattern, you can follow it to a T, or you can be like, I don't really like the way that collar is. I'm gonna substitute it with this type of collar. And you really make unique garments of clothing. And I think that's really awesome, and it's really fun, and you can really tailor your wardrobe to items that you're going to wear. Which is also part of the reason I decided to start knitting in a lot of ways too, because it's so hard. Like, I'm at this point in my life where like ready to wear fashions just don't align to my personal style. And so I'm like, I want to make my own, and who knows, maybe that will translate into me learning how to sew soon. We'll see. I really want to learn how to sew. I really want a sewing machine. We'll see what happens. All right. What are some mistakes I've made on my journey so far? A lot. I've made a lot of mistakes. I have ignored gauge and wound up with something crazy. I've ignored required yarn types and like yarn weights and wound up with something wild. I've played yarn chicken because of it. I still don't know how to make a sleeve that fits right, apparently. There's just so many things that I've done wrong, but it's all part of the game. And part of why I do love knitting is you make a mistake, all you have to do to fix it is rip it back. Like, no mistake is unfixable when it comes to knitting. Like, you can add more yarn, buy more yarn. Even if the dye lots are different, there's so many ways that you can make mistakes look intentional. And that's another reason I've loved this craft, is mistakes are welcome and mistakes are okay. I remember seeing a post on Reddit very early on in my journey, and this kind of really helped me, because I can be a perfectionist. When I think that I should be good at something or I shouldn't make mistakes on something, it really I can really lock in on mistakes. And one thing that I saw on Reddit very early on in my journey is, I think there's an Irish, essentially like saying, or folklore maybe would be the right word, that every mistake in a knitted garment is you putting a piece of your soul into that garment. And when you rip back a mistake, you're releasing that piece of your soul to like freely float within the universe. And then someone commented and was like, I really love the fact that like all the mistakes in my knitted garments have become Horcruxes. And I was like, that is pretty funny. Like, we hate JKR, but that is pretty funny. But that really helped me become okay with making mistakes. Like, if I have a mistake in a garment, it's not an imperfection, it's a piece of me. It's a piece of who I am, and it's a piece of the love that I've given to this garment. So I love that. I think that's really fun. And that is also one of my favorite things about knitting is like you can make mistakes. Nothing is irreversible. Nothing is as big of a deal as you think it is. In the moment, it can be frustrating, but it's so rewarding when you get to the end and you can look back and be like, I made that mistake, I learned from that mistake, and I fixed it. As well as you get to the end of this garment and you've made this. You've made something tangible with your time, with your effort, and you have grown not only in skill, but personally. Like I've grown as a person knitting. Like it really has helped so much. Now let's talk a little bit more about what I would do differently if I were to look back and be essentially starting my first year of knitting again. I would be more intentional with the projects I plan and with my purchases. I started knitting right as Joann's was going out of business. So I went a little bit crazy and I bought a bunch of yarn that's still sitting in my stash that I don't know if I'm going to use. I have no projects in plan for it. So I would be a lot more intentional with the projects that I'm knitting, but the yarn that I'm purchasing. I would think about it a bit more and I wouldn't fall into the trap of purchasing stuff for the hype. I would also learn yarn weights. I tried to be intentional in my learning. I watched other people's videos, but I still was kind of like, hey, I'm going to see what happens. And I think that's part of the fun. Like, I'm not saying that, you have to be perfect from the start. And part of the fun is making mistakes and learning as you go and becoming someone who is more knowledgeable at the end of a project. But there are definitely some stuff in my closet that I've knit where I'm like, I'm never going to touch this. Because it was literally a project. I have one shirt, the first garment that I made, I literally made knowing that I was probably never going to wear it. It was a yarn that I had purchased at Joann's that I don't even like the color. I don't wear orange. I don't wear, it's like this creamsicle color orange. I don't wear that color. I will never wear that color. It's also a heavyweight cotton yarn, so it's very heavy. It's pretty thick. I'm probably never going to wear that garment, and I'm never going to. But I knew that going into that project because in my mind, I was like, this is my project for learning this. And I wish I had been a little bit more intentional beyond just that project in doing that, because I do also have some projects that I would love to wear more often, but I made the mistakes. And I can't. This is Artie, by the way. He is another one of our boys, of our little fur boys. We have 2 boys and 2 girls, and this is the second boy. And him and Teddy, the other boy, love snuggles. But yeah, I would be a little bit more intentional in my knitting and in the projects that I do, in the yarn that I purchase. But I think that's all part of the learning and it's all part of the experience. So at the end of the day, I don't regret anything that I've done. I wouldn't do anything. Okay, maybe I would do it differently, but I don't regret that I didn't do it differently. Let's put it that way. Because at the end of the day, I learned a new craft, I learned a new hobby, and the mistakes that I made along the way are part of me learning that. So that is really what I have for you today. I appreciate you hanging out with me. And I want to know, how long have you been knitting? And what is one piece of advice you would have given to your first version of you in the knitting world? No, that's not a good word for it. What's one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you could look back and be like, this is one thing you should do when you first learn how to knit? I would love to know that advice. And I will see you guys in my next video. Also, keep an eye out for my stash video, my what does my stash look like after 1 year of knitting video. It's coming out soon. I've been filming it in increments because it is a bigger undertaking than I thought it would be. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.